Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to explain why objective morality is impossible if you believe in God. Now this is going to be a surprising conclusion to a lot of people, and it is a little provocative. However, I'm going to defend it from here on out. Because a lot of religious people tend to say that, oh, without God there is no morality. There is no such thing as objective morality. This is an absurd conclusion. These people do not understand morality. So let's just start with the question of what is morality? What is morality? What is ethics? It's basically the question of what should I do? As a human being, what action should I take in life? What action should I take in reality? Now, there's actually a there's basically two dominant schools of thought with regards to morality right now. There's a third school, that's Objectivism, and that I'll lay out a very basic interpretation of our ethics later, hopefully. I might make some mistakes, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, the main schools are intrinsicism and subjectivism when it comes to morality. Intrinsicists say that there is some morality, it's basically the God argument for morality, that God says that these things are good and these things are bad, so we need to follow that morality because God said so. And it's this sort of intrinsic morality that's basically what it is. It's this sort of intrinsic morality. Now the subjectivists say that there is no morality. You do whatever you want, just do whatever. These are like hedonists that are like, oh, just do whatever makes you feel the most pleasure. Now, I'm not going to be addressing the subjectivist morality here, but I just wanted to lay out a basic definition of that, just so that I can sort of compare it to the intrinsicist morality, because there's actually a very important shared premise between the two. But now, onto the objectivist conception of morality. The objectivist conception of morality basically says that since you're alive and happiness is possible for you if you take the proper actions to survive, then you ought to live. You ought to live for your own happiness, and there's objective requirements for this happiness. There are objective things that you need to do. Basically, live according to reason. Live with accordance to reason, which is your nature and your means of survival. So basically, in this sense, morality is basically baked into the nature of man, because he has certain facts of there's certain facts of his there's certain requirements of his survival. He needs to do certain things to survive and be happy, which are two basically intertwined sort of things. He has certain requirements if he wants to live and be happy. And to live and to be happy, he needs to behave rationally. He needs to use his means of survival, which is his reason. So all of this is basically baked into the nature of man. Now, both the intrinsicists and subjectivists reject this premise. Subjectivists basically say that there is no objective requirement. There's no objective morality for man. Now, intrinsicists agree with this. They say that there is no objective requirements for man to live. This is why actually the religious people say there's no objective morality without God. They think that they basically agree with the subjectivists, and then they say, but we need morality, and there is morality. But it's just because God said so. Not because it's baked in, basically part of the nature of man. Not because it's part of the nature of reality that this morality is necessary. It's because there's a God. Because a God said so. Because of God's whims. Because of the whims of a powerful creator being. Now this is actually not an objective morality. This is not a objective view of morality. It basically is just the whims of God, whatever God says, the subjective, because he's powerful, because he's this being that created reality, he gets to determine what morality is. There's no it doesn't matter the consequences of morality. It matters if you're following God. Now this is no moral system. This is not a good moral system, because it's not objective by any means. It's not part of the nature of man. It's not as strong of an ethical system. It's basically just based on a dictate, based on a command of God, based on a duty prescribed intrinsically by God. Now, the objectivist morality says no. Objective morality does exist. because of the nature of man, because of reality. It points to reality rather than this arbitrary dictate of a God. Why does God get to choose what's objective and what's not objective? Because he said so? It's just the same as a subjectivist. It's some consciousness determining what's good. Well, it's some conscious being determining by his whims what is good and bad. The only issue, the disagreement here is it a higher power? Is it a God who's determining what's good or bad? Or is it just individual persons by their whims determining what's good or bad? Both are based on whim. Both are based entirely on feeling. And now, since I believe God's not real, God is also clearly based on whim. It's just human beings saying, oh, we feel like we should have these laws. We should feel like these things should be considered bad out of context. These intrinsic rules that we set down. Don't kill another person. What about self-defense? I mean, there's usually certain exceptions, or the whole don't lie thing, don't bear false witness. Sure, I'm perfectly fine with honesty. Honesty is a good thing. You need to be a part of reality and live in accordance to reality. But what if there's an axe murderer at your house and they're looking for your child? Do you tell them that there's a child living in your house? No, obviously not. You have a higher standard than what God says or what this commandment is. You need to look at what your life requires. Look at your hierarchy of values and say, no, this child is very high on my hierarchy of values, so I will lie here to protect that child. You always keep it in context. You always need to keep it in context. Never, ever drop context. If you dropped your context, be sure to pick it back up. Oh, you dropped your context over there. Go pick it back up. Pick up the fucking context. Pick up the fucking context. Good Lord, stop dropping context, everybody. But anyways, so where was I at? Yeah. You always need to keep the context in mind. You can't just hold these intrinsic dictates of a God based on the whim of human beings thousands of years ago, or based on the whim of God too. No, you need to hold morality based on your own nature, based on reality. That is objective. That is very objective because it's based on your relationship with reality rather than God's whims, rather than the whims of the people, the whims of society, which are how subjectivists think about it. It's basically the same morality. It's just the subjectivists say society, and the intrinsicists, the religious people, say God. They're both pointing at the whims of some other consciousness besides their own. Now, the only consciousness that matters is your own. Because that's the one that relates to reality. I guess that's the one that you are. You are that consciousness. You experience yourself. And you look at your relationship to reality to determine morality. And this is objective, clearly objective, rather than these laws that are based on nothing in reality. Because that's what God's laws are. That's what the Ten Commandments are. They're just laws written down based on nothing in reality. Sure, there's a few good points in there. Of course, there's a few good points in there. I'm not a big fan of murdering people when it's not in self-defense, and I'm not a big fan of lying either, except for when you obviously need to. But notice there's always exceptions to these things because you always need to hold on to your context. Stop dropping context. Pick up your fucking context. Yeah, pick up your fucking context. And look at your own relation to reality when you're determining morality. Because morality is objective. You just need to look at reality and understand your objective relationship with reality. Don't take the whims of God as morality. Don't take the whims of society as morality. Because both of those, they're pretty subjective. They're not looking at reality. They're not based in reality. They're not baked into reality as such. So look at reality. Don't look to God. Don't look to society. We live in one of those, by the way. But yeah, be sure to look at reality and look at your own requirements with reality. Look at your own relationship between yourself and reality. That's what objectivity is. It's a relationship between consciousness and reality. And always be sure to never drop context. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Peace.